卖了个哦，
Hey everyone, good morning to you, good afternoon, good evening to friends in America. 大家好. My name is Heng Shi. Today is Saturday, the 29th of March, and it is the 28th of March back in California. We are into Aries, and we're about to continue our series on the picture biography of Master Empty Cloud. So let me say the logistics part before we begin, which is 如果各位呢想听中文的话，你们的控制板这个右下角有一个小地球，那里就叫 interpretation。你如果按到那个小地球，你可以听 Chinese，就有义工发心把我所讲的英语翻译流利的普通话。Also, if you would like to hear the lecture today in Vietnamese, go to the chat box, find the link, and you can hear a fluent Vietnamese translation provided by one of our kind-hearted and vigorous Dharma protectors. Also, in just a moment, Sarah from Memphis is going to be doing the Dharma request today. And if you would like to be the person doing the Dharma request in the future, just send in an email to the email address in the chat box to our tireless and fearless coordinator, Chang Yu, and she will set you up. If you can only do one language, that's great. We'll provide the second language. Okay, now what I'm going to do is ring the bell 3 times, invite you all to join me in making 3 half bows from where you sit, and then we'll have Sarah request the Dharma. All right, so here we go. 一问讯，再问讯，三问讯。Okay, Sarah, if you would like to request Dharma, please go ahead and do it now.
恭敬大德桑听，为此法会济一切众生，请观妙法轮教导我们，如何了生脱死离苦得乐，度障无上。It is stronger with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
南无塔萨巴嘎瓦多阿 arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahodi sammya sambuddhosye.
Namo saranto suchiroye alahadi samyao samputoshye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Right, Sarah, thank you for the Dharma request. I'd be happy to be the person to serve as like a camera lens so that the light of our text can shine through and people can get the benefit of the radiance of the Dharma. What we're about is we are explaining a book commissioned by our teacher, Shang Xuan Xiahua Lao Heshang. It's called Xuyun Lao Heshang Hua Zhuan. It's the picture biography of Master Empty Cloud, our teacher's teacher and our grand teacher. And our grand teacher lived to be 120, and in 120 years you have lots of stories to tell. So Master Shenhua looked at his teacher's lifespan, picked out 200 episodes, commissioned an artist in Hong Kong to draw an illustration of each one of those little stories and put them into a book called the Picture Biography. We are in volume 2 now. Master Empty Cloud is, let's see, oh, you know what? I'm giving you the preamble too early. Master Empty Cloud is 61 years old, and he is currently going through a very turbulent time in China's history. So let's continue with our preamble, getting our story on the way. We'd like to acknowledge country. We respectfully acknowledge the Kombo-Meri people of the Ugambi language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where our monastery is located. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 那就说我们恭敬地承认Ugambi语族的Kombo-Meri人，他们是这个道场所在地的传统叙事者和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从来没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。One more item in our preamble is the bell song. Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众商传3000劫内佛法养万亿国中，共训起法界和平，利益报他no后德。Okay. Now, oh my goodness, look at this super dramatic desktop photograph. Now, this is a Buddhist lecture. It's a lecture on a Buddhist pilgrim. But, as we've been saying for the last couple lectures, on one hand, we get the story of Master Empty Cloud's life. But in the telling of that story, we hear about China in the 19th and 20th century. Today's episode comes from the year 1900, and the picture on your screen is a picture of the boxers known as the Yi He Quan or the Yi He Tuan. They For those of you who don't read the Chinese, down below it says 这个团是暴乱分子还是爱国运动啊 So are these people to be considered rebels or are they patriots? And I think the answer to that question is the jury is still out, undecided. Probably from the point of view of history, from the point of view of Chinese history, they were more patriotic than they were rebellious. The reason why we don't have a Buddha image, something very peaceful and calm, we have instead this dramatic, violent show of men who are looking at their most fierce. They have weapons in their hands, their hands are in fists, is because Master Empty Cloud was exactly in the middle of this crisis in Chinese history. So that's our story today. Okay, that was my choice to put this picture on our desktop. As we, here's the introduction. The story for today's episode is Li Beijing Fu Chang'an, leaving Beijing, heading towards Chang'an. It is the 61st year of the the 26th year of the Guangxu reign period. Our hero is 61 years old. It is the year 1900, and China is in suffering. China is in chaos. So we'll look at the Chinese first and read the English. We'll look at the picture. We'll hear Master Hua's verse, and then come back and talk about what's going on. Okay, are we ready? Here we go. No need to put your bubi he zhang. This is not the Buddha's words. This is a history story. Here we go. 日夜兼程，艰苦万状，行至富平县。试问干藩岑勋宣秦王秉制，护驾出长城，入山西雁门关，有云门寺一老僧，已124岁，帝赐皇陵及建方，又系行至平阳，遍地饥荒。Okay, all of that. For those of you who read pretty much classical Chinese, this is sort of Baihua Wen, sort of Wanyan Wen. Day and night, the forced march continued, despite the many difficulties and the bitter suffering. As they reached Fuping County, the soldiers of Governor Sun Chunxuan of Gansu could be heard approaching to protect the monarch. They escorted their royal group through the Great Wall. After entering Yanmen, Wild Geese Pass, Yanmen Guan, in Shanxi province, the emperor met a 124-year-old monk in Yunmen Monastery. The emperor bestowed fine yellow robe cloth. He also ordered the construction of an arch. The western march continued, and upon reaching Pingyang, they encountered widespread famine. All right, so we're, what's going on? Here's the picture. You can see here is Master Empty Cloud. He's got his patched robe. He's wearing his monk's xizhang. There are men in officers' robes, officials' robes, and there are horses, mounted horses. Up ahead is an imperial chariot. And what is that? That is the Wanli Changcheng. That's the Great Wall of China. This is smoke from something that is burning. And you can see the wind is blowing, indicating what they are now out in the frontier. Beyond the Great Wall is the wilderness, pretty much, since the Qin dynasty for 2,000 years. And this is turbulence. People are on a forced march. Where are they heading? They're running from the chaos in Beijing. Let's look at the poem first and then come back and tell the story. So Master Hua wrote a 4-line verse, a gatha, to accompany every episode. Here's how it goes. 一人有庆照民来，万姓无辜多倒悬。车驾西行亲经历，遍地饥荒太可怜。If even one leader enjoys good fortune, all the people can rely upon him. The common people were blameless, but they still suffered grievously. When the royals fled to the west, they themselves experienced the serious famine which prevailed. It was just too pitiful. Okay. So, what in the world is going on? The first sentence of our story said, day and night the forced march continued despite the many difficulties and bitter suffering. So what has happened? Master Empty Cloud is accompanying the Empress, Cixi Taiho. She's not actually, she's the mother of the emperor. The emperor is back in China, in the Zijinchang, in the Forbidden City, but the real power is the emperor's mother, Cixi Taiho. We looked at her photos last week. She was the first Chinese royal to really embrace the art of photography. So we have lots of photos of her doing all kind of like playing cosplay, dressing up as Guanyin Pusa, having her eunuchs dress up as Weito Pusa. And on one hand, judging by the photos, you could say, oh, everything is copacetic, everything is cool. In fact, the royal family lives in a sort of bubble, while China, outside the Forbidden City, is burning to the ground. In telling this story, I had to choose how far back in Chinese history to go to explain what's going on. And the setting for what's happening is decades and decades of struggle in China as the outside world, that is to say, the powers of Europe, the powers of Japan, of Russia, and now of America, many of whom have already, due to the progress of science, have come into the industrial age, the industrial era. China, which for thousands and thousands of years was really 中国, so they could say 天下太平, 四海之内, right? All of these phrases, within the 4 seas, China is the leader. They say that, oh, everything under everything under heaven is in harmony and peace. Well, for thousands of years that was true. Since the Ming Dynasty fell to the Manchus, that is not the story. China became, over a matter of centuries, what was called Yajiu Bingfu, the sick man of China. Anything that is established over centuries gets rigid, gets ingrown. That happened to China. And the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, bypassed China. So suddenly, here is Holland, here is England, here is Germany, here is France, here is Italy, here is Russia, here is the United States, and most telling for China, here's Japan. All those nations have embraced science. They appeared in gunboats in the Changjiang, saying to China, we want you to open up your ports and allow us in. We will trade with you. China said, nope, sorry, we don't want to have anything to do with the Yanggui's, with the foreign devils, the foreign ghosts. And so England, for example, forced their way in with opium that they farmed in India and then brought into China and got the Chinese addicted to opium, which is a terribly addicting substance. It's a drug, and you smoke it once or twice, and pretty much you don't want to do anything else. And so the Chinese government, we don't want your foreign poison. And the British said, yes, you do. You will buy it. So this was the kind of trouble that came to China in the 19th century. Furthermore, riding on those gunboats were who? Christian missionaries who saw China as a wonderful opportunity to spread the word of the Lord again among the heathens. And so the gospel of Christianity was followed right behind the gunboats, and lots of Chinese became converted to Christianity, and this was a monotheistic system in a country that was non-theistic. And so there's a lot of incompatibility here. But along with, there was all of these external influences that came into China. Now, it's not the case that everybody thought this was a happy solution. So in the counties, particularly of Shandong and Henan, Hubei, groups of native Chinese said, we don't want opium, we don't want your foreign religion, we're going to forcibly expel the foreigners and support the Qin, support the Qing, support the Qing and expel the foreigners. This was the rise of the Boxers, Yihechuan, they were called. Now, this was in the northeast of China, where they had just been recovering from a famine. There was this horrible experience in China at the same time as the foreigners arrived, which was the famine in the between 1876 and 1879, the most lethal drought famine in Imperial China's long history of famine and disasters struck the 5 northern provinces of Shanxi, Henan, Shandong, Zhili, and Shanxi. The drought in the Yellow River Basin began in 1876, and it worsened with the total failure of rain. By the time the rains returned late in 1878, an estimated 9 to 13 million of the affected area's total population of 108 million people had died. So this material is from MIT's History Through Pictures, wonderful project of going back and finding the actual illustrations that were circulated at the time in China of telling the story of these events. So anyway, this was 20 years earlier, but the point is, between the famine of northeast China and then the arrival, the forced distribution of opium, and the attempts of the Chinese government to get rid of it, that was then, they were defeated militarily and they had to open their ports to the Western world. It was a shock for China. They were being dragged into 20th century, into a time of embracing science, embracing non-Chinese religions. It didn't happen peacefully. The Boxers were an attempt to preserve the traditional ways. Now, who was in charge of China at the time? Well, it's a sad story, because there were internal power struggles between the emperor, who was essentially an ineffective leader, and his mother, who was a very powerful leader, Cixi Taiho. So the Boxers invaded Beijing and Tianjin and massacred Christians, Chinese Christians, and Westerners. Hearing that news, armies arrived from 8 different countries, including the US, including Japan, Germany, France, Italy, and who did I leave out? Britain, Great Britain, all of whom began to defend their various missionaries and settlement groups, and they wanted to negotiate with China. China was of different minds. Shanghai, down in the south, Hangzhou, down in the south, said, fine, we will happily trade with you. We're not trying to kill, we're not trying to massacre or get rid of the Christians. But northern China, Beijing in particular, Tianjin in particular, fought back, led by these homegrown Taoist-inspired troops called the Boxers. So the fighting went back and forth, and it was so dangerous to be in Beijing that the Empress said, the Empress Dowager said, we are, for safety, taking the royal family to the west, to Xi'an, which was Chang'an. That was last week. Master Empty Cloud included himself in the imperial retinue, in the imperial following. He set off with them to protect the royal family. This was last week. 清军将末闹伊河，八国联军入寇磨，迫逼太后长安去，拥护圣家有妥妥。The Qing dynasty faced ruin as the Boxers grew stronger. The allied armies of 8 foreign countries invaded like plundering demons. The Empress Dowager, in dire straits, fled to Chang'an in the west. One ascetic cultivator protected their royal majesties. So here is Shifu picked this story to tell as he got it from where? Where did he choose these events? He got it from Master Empty Cloud's Nianpu. Here is the original. This is Master Empty Cloud's own autobiography, where he tells the story. And he tells it very tersely. So we looked at this once before, but we'll go over it quickly. So it's May. It's May 1900. Okay? 团乱日势. The chaos of the war grew worse day by day. Their slogan was 扶清灭洋, which was support the Qing, the emperor, get rid of the foreigners, wipe out the foreigners. 杀日本使官数记. There were the Japanese ambassador was killed, 及德国公使, and some German consuls were killed. 皇太后引纵之. Secretly, the Taoist empress supported this. Maybe she gave the orders. It's not clear where she stood at this point. And if you're the empress, what's it like in the palace? You take advice from a great many different advisors. One by one, you got 100 advisors and all fighting among themselves for the ear of the empress. And she is overruling the emperor himself, her son. So you can see it's very complicated. 至本月17日, on the 17th day of May, 靖夏诏与各国宣战. There is the word goes out to fight with the foreign armies. 京中大乱, Beijing became completely in turmoil. 6月附近, let's see, 天津失守. The city of Tianjin was lost to the invading 8 root armies. 7月联军照北京. Now the group of 8 different soldiers, 8 different armies invaded Beijing. 10王公大臣在驻龙泉寺者. At that time, the royal families and all the ministers who were taking shelter in Longquan Si, north of Beijing, 与我相守, whom I knew very well, which I knew very well, 乃劝我跟以等随以必西行, pleaded with me, Master Empty Cloud, to travel with the royal families to the west. 在兵荒马乱中已无所谓，马随春江是天骄矣. So in this, there was here we were in the midst of 兵荒马乱中, in the midst of cavalry and troops out in the wilderness, essentially. 日夜成 let's see, 干城. We set out to with the royal carriage and on our escape route. 困苦万状. The suffering that we experienced was hard to explain, hard to tell all the things all of the troubles that went on. 喜至秋平县. We went to Fuping县. 室温甘酸甘盘村春愿意至远并传. There was a political figure out there who helped us out. 帝后大喜. The royal family was very happy. 乃护驾出长城. They went out through the Great Wall. So I'm going through quickly through his autobiography without editorializing, but I want to say the details of this story, I couldn't find them. I don't think this story has been told. I searched for Buddhist monk accompanying Cixi Taiho leaving Beijing, no record of it. So if we have any historians of 20th century China, here's a story waiting for your first, second, and third book, telling this story. Now, of course, they make a movie out of it. Who would Brad Pitt playing Master Empty Cloud? Who would it be? I don't know. Chris Pine or somebody. Timothy Chalamet, right? Yeah, no. So this story needs to be told. There is, in English, as far as I know, maybe even in Chinese, there is no account of how the royal family took refuge in a Buddhist monastery. A Buddhist monastery came along to pray for their well-being. So they left the Great Wall. 乃入山西雁门关. This Yanmenguan is a famous scene of Master Xuanzhuang's trip to India 1400 years earlier. This is considered the frontier, right? This is out where you go out when you leave China behind. And I might add, along with when they got to Gansu, along with Master Empty Cloud, there was another group that was pressed in to protect them, which is called the Ganjun. Who was the Ganjun? They were Muslim rebels, Muslim irregulars, mercenaries, many of them, who came from this area. They were Islamic, and they came from all these different Islamic groups that were native to this area, to Gansu and Xinjiang. And they came along to ostensibly to protect the empress, but they were as violent as any other army and are said to have been responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths along the way. So total chaos. Now, in the midst of this, 起地有云门寺, Yunmen Cloud Gate Monastery is there. 一老僧124岁. Here's a 124-year-old monk. 帝司皇君及建方. In the midst of the chaos, the royal family says, we're going to give you some yellow cloth. You can make your robe from it. Build an arch here to celebrate the 124-year-old monk. Did that happen? They're running. They're escaping chaos. 又西行至平阳，遍地饥荒. Okay, so this is where our episode that we started with ends. His biography continues. The biography carries on. All right. Now we get some details about the new famine. The last famine we looked at was 20 years earlier, when 10% of the population starved to death. Now there's a new famine because China was suffering a lot. Not enough rain. Not enough rain, no food. The soil, if you've ever seen North China, at best times it's dry. And the Chinese, over the thousands of years living there, have learned how to conserve the water to get the crops they can grow. But if something intervenes, if there's not enough rain for a number of years, there's just no food. No food. So what do? Are we ready? 七甘露雨喜哉, praying for the sweet dew of rain to avert disaster. Same year, continued. Here we go. 民以玉蜀业尽，帝后时甘之，至西安，地住府院，有人使死尸者，欲尽之。四城设80范处，大小村镇亦然。府台曾春轩，请公至卧龙寺，祈祷学语，习旱灾弊，东夏留住，共以消防身前去。Okay, every word in this story is bound up in pain and indescribable grief. The local people offered taro and sweet potato leaves for the emperor and empress to eat, which the royals found quite edible. At Xi'an, the emperor resided at the provincial governor's headquarters. During this period, people were so hungry they ate corpses. So an edict was issued prohibiting cannibalism. 8 rice lines were set up in the urban areas, in addition to those created in the big and small towns and the outlying areas. Governor Cun Chunxuan asked the master to go to Wolong Si to offer prayers for snow or rain to end the drought. At the conclusion of the prayers, Abbot Dongxia requested the master remain, but because of the clamor and the din, the master secretly left. Okay. So here is a picture. There's a monastery here, Wolong Si. Okay, here is the emperor, perhaps, or a major official coming out to greet Master Empty Cloud, famous monk coming in. Here's the cart coming in. You can see the pagodas. Here's all the people sitting there. So imagine the royal entourage. Let's get the poem first, then we'll tell the story. Oh my goodness. Here we are. Okay. 治世全胜乱世人， 造次颠沛险中尘，遍地荒旱民饥馑，府台勤工到甘霖。A dog lives better during times of peace than a person does in chaotic times. In the midst of confusion and disorder, a loyal minister appeared. As the severe drought intensified, the starving masses suffered. The provincial governor asked the master to pray for refreshing rain. Okay, there's our story. Now, Master Hua, in telling this story, picked out some, careful language to describe the situation, because each episode is tiny, there's only a few lines, compared to the amount of stories to be told here. The local people offered taro and sweet potato leaves, di gua ye, for the emperor and empress to eat, which the editor royals found quite edible. Good for them, right? Ganzhi, well, that's nice, since probably the local people, by giving their yutou and di gua ye to the emperor, meant they didn't have any. That was it for them. And they gave it to the emperor. The emperor doesn't eat di gua ye. The empress doesn't eat yutou, right? In this case, they did, and that's edible, and that's very nice. Yeah, we can eat it, it's kind of plain. That's all there is, my friend. So good that they ganzhi, they liked it, 喜欢, So now, the other thing that Master Hua points out is that this governor came out, Cun Chun Xuan. He, in times like this, of what use is a government? That's the question. And the answer is, there are many stories many stories written in empty space, answering that question. Some governors of specific provinces, because they were not corrupt, stored up grain and edibles just for situations like this. China, this is not the first drought. This is not the first famine. In fact, China being a 90% agrarian culture, which means what? In China, most of the folks grew their own food. That was how we lived. And what the government mostly did was come through and tax the people. And if money was not common. It wasn't like now where everybody's got credit cards or Apple wallets, electronic payment. Back then, the government comes and says, give me tax, you give them grain. You give them your pig. You give them your son for the army to pay off the tax. And if the government is mean and corrupt, they ask for more. They don't let up. The taxation was considered worse than the drought in terms of causing the ordinary person to suffer. Now, every now and then, you ran into a qingxiu guan, a not corrupt, an incorruptible governor who took the grain that people gave him and he put it into a storehouse and found a way to keep the rats off it and found a way to keep the blight out of it. And when the times were hard, they opened up the granaries and shared it with the people. That was how, you could say, Confucius wanted things to work. Well, occasionally it did. So here is one of those stories. The governor, what's his name? Cun Chunxuan, here's his name right here, is welcoming Master Empty Cloud to Wolong Si. He says, oh, you have 大德, 那个, 大德徐云老和尚, please come and do the 祈雨仪式. You ask the dragons to send rain. anything, rain or snow, we'll take either one to end the drought. So Master Empty Cloud does the ceremony, but in his biography, what does it say? It says, 人民以玉叶鼠叶尽，地后时而干之，至西安，地主福院，使饥民遍地. Okay, so the ordinary folks were eating taro, which is easy to grow, hard to kill, and sweet potato leaves, which are pretty much everywhere. They grow at City of 10,000 Buddhas. They grow here in Australia. They grow everywhere in Taiwan. Sweet potato leaves are what the fruit monk, Shui Guo Heshang, survived on in Taiwan. So now that everyday people's food makes it into the royal palate, and they liked it, they went to Xi'an, and the emperor moved into the local magistrate's house. However, dead, starving, famine, people suffering from famine were everywhere. 有失死食者. People ate corpses. Cannibalism. 欲禁之. Of course, the royal family saw that and said, don't do it, stop. Tell someone who hasn't had any solid food in their mouth for a month to stop. Now, the story of cannibalism is not unique to China. This happened sadly, if you have been without food for a certain number of days and there are dead bodies around you, that's a lot of meat you're looking at. Of course, no one likes to think that you survive by eating other humans. Human meat is considered taboo, yes, until you get hungry enough. So this is documented, that people under incredible provocation and having no alternative, literally no food, because it hasn't rained. Because it hasn't rained, there's no crops. Because there's no crops, people starve. That's the booklet that I showed you from the essay here. This is the Boxer Uprising essay. There are the essays from the MIT Visual Culture website, talks about how the starvation that happened in 20 years earlier killed just, huge percentages of Chinese population. People starved because they depended on agriculture. The agriculture breaks down, what do? So, here's the case in China of cannibalism. All right. It happened again in the Great Leap Forward in the 50s. So it's hard to say, blaming people for seeing your children, your parents, your grandparents, your spouses, everyone starving. What do? So I'll just pose that question. 四城设巴士方便，大小村. So they tried to set up lines for people to eat. They were successful. Okay, now we get back to our story of Master Empty Cloud. He was invited by the governor to come to Wolongsi, reclining dragon monastery, to do a Shi Zai Fa Hui. So here's monks' work to come in and chant on behalf for Shi Bi, Dongxia Lao Heshang. After the ceremonies are over, an old monk named Dongxia asked me to stay at Wolongsi. So I said, I'm going to stay with the royal family to Xi'an. the disasters grew worse. Qian Chu. I secretly left. All right? So, I am a humble storyteller and a historian of Buddhist history in America from 1962. Master Hua arrives. From 1973, I took refuge. From that time on, I saw it with my own eyes. Before that, I depend upon my Dharma brothers and sisters who preceded me at Gold Mountain and Buddhist Lecture Hall. I'm fascinated with the history of Hanchuan Fojiao that produced Master Empty Cloud and our teacher, Master Xuyun Hua. So when you, on one hand, we want to tell the story of monks who did wonderful things like bowing every 3 steps across China, who was a filial son. His mother died in childbirth, and he went to King Ashoka Temple and bowed thousands of times every day, and then burned off a finger, and actually saw his mother reborn in a Pure Land. These are the stories that just motivate us and kind of connect us to our roots. But no life is lived independent from the times and the environment around it. And so by looking at Master Empty Cloud's life, we have to pick up on the stories of China in this turbulent time. Now, just to leave us with another taste in our mouths as we study this history, we can look at this story. Here we are. All right. Here is Master Empty Cloud. In 1950, let's see, this is 1949. So he has now added the second half of his life when this picture was taken. Understand, 1900 is the first half of Master Empty Cloud's life. So the stories of what you, how the choices that he made. The question is, why did he accompany the royal entourage out of Beijing on the way to Xi'an? One answer, because he was a patriotic son of China. Why did he leave? Well, the answer is because monks take a vow. Among our precepts is the promise that we will not put ourselves in danger. It's an actual one of the Bhikshu precepts, and the Bhikshuni precepts are even stronger in this regard, that as you cultivate the way, you have to see yourself as holding the Buddha nature, holding the Ru Yi Zhu, you're holding the wish-fulfilling pearl in your bosom, and it's important to protect it. So monks cannot, we hold the precepts against going around where people are fighting, for example. And you can't join warring armies. So he didn't do that. He was with the royal family in an attempt to use his Dharma strength, his Fa Li, his Gongde, his Fu Bao, his blessings, his merit and his virtue, to protect the Empress Dowager and all of the royal ministers. So at a certain point, two weeks ago, we found out that Master Empty Cloud went to Wu Taishan to avoid the clamor, but he couldn't. Out there in Shanxi province, it was not peaceful. So he came back to Beijing and discovered the chaos going on in the capital. He traveled with the Empress Dowager out to Shanxi, to Xi'an, and at that point decided, time for me to go. So this is our story, and here we are in 2021. I'm sorry, we're in 2025 now, and Han Chuan Fojiao, Chinese Mahayana Buddhism, among the various Buddhist groups here in Australia and in America, in Canada, is the least known. People know more about Tibetan Buddhism than they do about Chinese Buddhism. Why? It's because since 1949, monks couldn't leave to get out. Master Hua is an exception. Here he is, from the teacher that sent him overseas. Master Empty Cloud said he was invited by the woman with the white hair to come to America. She lived in Santa Barbara, California. Empty Cloud said, nope, I'm going to send my disciple Xuanhua to go out. His name was not that then, mind you. That name came later. So this is how we know about these stories that were told back in China that have yet to be told, mind you. And I want to show this is a particularly poignant image from an American magazine published in 1900. This, see the cross in the sky shedding light? Who drew this picture? This picture was drawn by Emperor Frederick of Prussia, the ruler of Prussia. An angel with wings is pointing to chaos and flames and smoke in China. Around him are Christian soldiers. Here's a British shield. This is the Germans are considered the Brits, their colleagues here. It says, nations of Europe, join in the defense of your faith and your homes. Who is he pointing to? That's the Buddha, sitting in the east, in flames, in smoke. Here is a common view in Europe in the 1900s of Buddhism in particular, of Asia in general, setting up a war with soldiers of Christ. So this is the first impression that many Europeans and Westerners got of China and Buddhism. So if we understand that we have challenges in speaking Dharma, introducing it to the West, this is the background that we have to overcome as we introduce proper Dharma from the mind ground, Xin Di Fa Men. Just to say, understand where we come from as we bring the Dharma to the West. All righty. Thank you all for taking part today in this history lesson. Oh my goodness, what a challenge as we look. This is the one we saw last week. Here is China. It's a dragon. Here's the dragon's eyes. Here's Uncle Sam with his shirt sleeves rolled up, ready either to go to war or to sell you products. This is from Harper's Weekly, 1900. Look at the Chinese dragon. Is it peace or is it war? Well, we haven't answered this question. This question is still being asked today. What is the role of Buddhists in the midst of this challenge to bring peace to every living being? Right? How do we do it? We do it thought by thought, dedication by dedication. So please make a wish, however you would like to share your merit. lives as one and radiant with light. Share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. And before we go, I invite you all to join me in bowing to the Buddha. In this case, it's Guanyin Pusa. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. That's going to do it for us for today. See you all next week. Amitofo. Bye, everybody. Amitofo. 辛苦了。哦，这样子，西雅图。Amitofo. Okay, terrific. Yeah, great. Do you spend time with Heng Shou Fashi? Do you go out to Bodhidharma Center in Seattle? 恒寿法师。哦，在西雅图。Okay, you're go at Snow Mountain. 雪山寺. Good. Okay, welcome. 阿弥陀佛. I was just with Heng La yesterday online. Yeah. Okay. Feeling better. Yeah, yeah. He had a good 开刀就成功. Yeah. They found no problem in his heart. So yeah.